Okay, so I'm going to go through the Christmas project. I'm going to read through it and I want you just to go through with me and refer back to anything that I'm talking about that you think is important. Process book. Over the Christmas break, you are going to develop and consolidate all the work you have produced since starting in 3D spatial design to create a visual design identity in book form. You've been exploring several key aspects of 3D and spatial design through a series of process-led and practical research, workshop and studio activities. All the work you've done should be photographic, 3D or on loose sheets. The book you produce will be an essential part of your portfolio building and presentation to BA courses in early February. The key themes in which you should develop within the book should focus on the reuse remake, the drawing week that you all did, research when we were out in London and looking at making devices, materials where you were doing lots of workshop activities, and the presentation week, which is the brilliant crit and presentation you did at the end of term. You have an abundance of work that you've produced over the last 4 weeks and you need to edit and select this in order to compile a coherent and stimulating visual resource. I think the best thing to do is get it into categories. You're thinking about cataloguing what you've done and being able to use it to refer back to when you get into January, February and March, when you're working a lot more on under your own devices. The reuse project should probably stand a little bit independently from the rest of the project, but I think it's up to you to think about how you do that. Drawings should include your mappings and floor plans, your tape interventions in college, everyday activities that you did with the instructions and your illustrations, and you should also include your independent artist and design research. Your research section of the book should include viewing devices, the measuring devices, drawing devices, and that can include photographs, drawings, images, your actual work that you did with those things. You should also include the visit to the Tate, thinking about how people move around the sculpture collections, how is stuff presented, how is it displayed, and then you're looking at the Museum of London. And the next thing you did on the Thursday was looking at how you group things together, creating collections. You were asked to do a 100-word contextual writing piece and also look at how you bring in the collections and how you put those together, whether it was ordering by size, colour, shape, particular interest. And then we looked at materials. You went on to the materials week where you developed sort of small, medium and large scale making. So you were doing casting, you were looking at multiples, you were looking at the word copy, merge, fold, and you were developing lots and lots of independent making approaches. And then you have the presentation week where you're working in groups, you were looking at how you present yourselves in a display system. You were creating a series and sequence and a set of small, medium and large scale workings according to your specialism. And you should all have images from the final pieces, and also Rupert has put on a photo file of all that work as well. Please make sure that you refer also back to the work that you've done in research. That's really quite lacking in some of your work that I've seen as part of my tutees. So when we looked at the drawing, the research, the materials, we gave specific people to look at. We want to see evidence of that. And we also want you to develop much more research in your independent time, starting to look at ways in which you're coming up with ideas and who is inspiring you. We've asked you to look at this book as being something that is kind of a catalogue or a reference book. So you need to think about how you combine all your work, but you need to expand your research into the specialism that you're interested in. We would like you to present in the first week back at least one of your designers that you found most influential over the last 4 weeks. You can write notes, annotations, and make your own responses, but you will be presenting your book and the person that you want to talk about in the first week back after Christmas. If you want to look at the digital way of working, you can look at Bob Books or Photobox. They make professional books, and I will be giving some references about that in a PowerPoint attached to this presentation. So please read back at the books and think about how you put the book together. It's got to be something that's useful to you. So this is the first time we've done a kind of film where you can refer to when you're not able to see us in person. So over the Christmas period, we'd like you to refer back to the images and resources we're giving you in order to help you work over Christmas and develop your process book. Like we said, the process book is very much about you presenting yourself as an independent designer, and we want you to take that responsibility of selecting and editing what you've done over the last 4 weeks. The main elements of those are, you did the Reuse Remake project, where you did lots and lots of work with that, and we're also going to be providing a checklist of everything that you need to contain in the book. You then worked into the drawing, lots of different approaches to drawing, then you went to research, materials, and then you did the presentation. So it's really important that you're kind of summarising what you've done. I'm going to show you some examples now of approaches to the book making, I suppose. Now, the Martino Gamper 100 Chairs in 100 Days is a really interesting and good book because it summarises. Also, you could think about the Reuse Remake project, but it does summarise imagery, and it's very small scale photographs, but the way it's bound is just with a very, very simple stitching mechanism. So you just create sections, and then they're glued and sewn together. And if you've done the bookbinding workshop, you should know how to do that. There's other ways you can put things together, or your pages. You might want to clip them together. You might want to think about creating a cover, or you might want to create a book that's much more professionally done on the computer. But the Martino book is really nice, and I like the book because it does have sections that come out. So you can think about maybe some sections of your book might stand in their own way, and you've got quite a nice sort of editing and creating information, almost like a handout. So that's a small scale way of presenting yourself, and it's really thinking about step by step what sections you want the book to be in, and how do you title it. Okay. Another book I wanted to show is this book, which is called The Art of Paper Folding for Pop-Up. It's very much a 3D approach to the book, and it's obviously a pop-up book, but I just think it's really, really engaging to look at. So you can see that it's showing you lots of different making mechanisms within 3D. But you might want to think about, if you're a 3D designer or a jeweler, how you develop ideas and more of a kind of you could have sections that pop out, not so that it's quite engaging to look at. So that's another book that you might want to look at over the break for some inspiration. Another book I wanted to show was this is a sketchbook, but I just wanted to show how things are edited and selected. This is very much materials and looking at casting and drawing, looking at the body. So this is a student's work who was also looking at site and space, doing lots of wrapping and processing and photographing outside of the environment. So this could refer back to your the idea of when you were folding, you were kind of casting with tinfoil, but also Rupert was doing some really good mapping stuff in Wilson's Road with the string, but how they're put together is quite nice. This is an A3 book, but it's just a very visual reference. I'm just going to go through the sketchbook. Going through, so this is casting from the body. She was using the body as a starting point. She was using skin and latex. And this is just the step-by-step development of her ideas, which is really useful. Then she moved into wire. Again, went into card and plastics. And then she was doing drawing from those. Casting in plaster, so she was kind of looking at the shoulder blades, doing surveys and asking people about the project. And then she moved into wire again, get on the body. So it's almost like when you went into your 3D process, you were doing the presentation, you kind of went into 3D, then you're going back into 2D. This is just an example of another approach to a book. This could be done professionally, laid out on Bob books. And I'm going to photograph this and put it on Moodle. And this was the actual model she made, and that was the model in situ on site. Okay, onto a scale model of a residential street in London. Okay, this also is helping. Hopefully, will help you to kind of look at how your imagery and your work is put into a context, i.e., portfolio or presentation. This was all loose photos on her Mac computer, and it's all been put into a book to show the starting and finishing of an idea. There's just another example. I find this book's very different. It's A4, but it's very much a kind of sketchbooky type thing, showing process, showing how things are used. It's a rougher approach. It's much more ideas based. Quick sketches, very appropriate to jewellers and product students. Okay, so this is prototyping, and this could be quite relevant to when you're making your reuse, remake books. You did lots and lots of editing and selecting and drawing as you went through. I'm going to scan these books as well, so you can kind of see them as just images as well. Oops. Okay. So it's very much ideas development, interesting book. Another one, just in terms of looking at gallery research. This is a bound A4, but landscape, and this is just the idea of kind of drawing onto rocks, which you might, some people, it could be related to the collections you came up with when you went onto the river in London, and developing ideas as sort of crystal drawings, coming up with spatial ideas or jewellery ideas based on crystals of rocks. There's a pineapple, I think. Okay. And then just a very makey project. So this could be related to how you put your materials together. So this is experiments with foam and sampling of materials. So got some foil casting there, thread, moving onto glue, PVA, sewing, references relating to that, but it's very simple and visual, this book. There's no writing comparing it to the other more rough and ready sketchbook or book. This is much more visual and sort of almost curated. It's very simple. So I think this approach to your process book could be quite useful. Okay, almost like cataloguing as you go along. Relating it to images that have been relevant. This is lichen growing on rock. Drawing and imagery again. So there was some examples of books that I have that I wanted to show you, but it's very important that you put the way of your thinking and what you've gone through the last 4 weeks together in some form that actually is useful to you. And we're wanting to see your personalities, your approaches, your interests, to be really an independent way of presenting yourself to us. And it's a really good start before you go through your interview process and your portfolio building in January, to do this now so that you've edited and selected before you start creating a much bigger portfolio than a book. And I think it really is something that's very nice to take to interview with you, whether it's done professionally on Bob Books or whether you do it yourself. It's your approach. If you maybe have lots of collections, I was just going to show something quickly, is you could think about what you might contain your work in. So you might want to create some sort of catalogue more three-dimensional. So could it be a 3D box, thinking of a filing cabinet, or thinking about how you could maybe combine or put things together. And one thing I do have, which is holding my laptop up annoyingly, that I'm just going to show you, is a suitcase, an old suitcase. You might want to think about using something like this that's found, especially for maybe product or jewellers. How can you put things together? Maybe you use something like this to start off with, so that you're actually cataloguing and using this as an idea for the book, or a way of editing and selecting 3D materials. That was just one suggestion. You don't need to do that, but it's just an idea. So just to recap, I've showed you the sketchbooks. I'm going to put those images, selection of images of those sketchbooks on Moodle, on a PowerPoint. The Art of Paper Folding for Pop-Up is a really good book in the sense that it's a very three-dimensional. It folds out, there's concertina, and it's a lovely book to have anyway. And then the Martino Gamper is very small scale, made very, very simply, but like I said, it has the handouts or the things that you can kind of take out that make it feel quite engaging to look at. Okay, that's it, I think, for the Christmas project. But very importantly, we're asking you to present this the first week back after Christmas, and we want you to research a designer or artist that's really influenced you, or you've discovered over Christmas or independently, that you want to talk about. And you're going to be talking about that in a group crit and presenting yourselves in that first week back as well. Second week after Christmas is going to be based out in town. Okay, so it's going to be very much a live project and very independent, and very, very importantly, a project that you will be most probably presenting within UP or when you go for your interview for university. Okay, thank you very much.